Okay, so today we're starting Chapter 12, Probability, and we're going to start with an introductory unit, just a little basics of finding probability and odds. So what is probability? What are some examples of probability? So basically, in probability, you've got between a 0 and 1 possibility of something happening. If it's a 0, it's going to be impossible. If it's a 1, it is certain it is going to happen. Okay, so on a dice, we have a 1 in 6 chance of rolling a 1. That's a bit unlikely. In picking one of these balls out of a bag, we have a 4 in 5 chance of picking a blue ball. That's likely. When we flip a coin, we have an even chance, 50-50, of getting the head or the tails. Alright, so looking at some examples, we first need to be able to speak fluently using probability vocabulary. So probability is a ratio, and remember, a ratio is just basically a fraction. Some number over some number. And in this case, we're talking about the favorable outcomes for the event to the total number of outcomes. Okay? Then we've got our next vocabulary word, the sample space. This is a list of all the possible outcomes. And lastly, we've got equally likely. When there are n outcomes and the probability of each one is 1 in n. Example, rolling a dice. There are 6 possible outcomes and each is equally likely, a 1 in 6 chance of happening. So something really important to keep in mind is that ratio and what it means. We just looked at an example of this in the previous photo, but 0 is impossible and 1 is certain. The closer to 0, the more unlikely. The closer to 1, the more likely. Alright, so let's do some probability. Let's find some probabilities. We've got a die. That's one singular of dice. And we need to find the probability of rolling a 1 or a 5. So, on a dice, how many possible outcomes are there? There are 6. 6 sides numbered 1 through 6. How many of those sides have a 1 or a 5 on them? 2 sides. So our probability is 1/3. 1 in 3. What's the probability of rolling an even number? Again, we've got 6 possible outcomes. How many even numbers do we have? Well, there are 3. So that gives me a probability of 1 in 2. That's an equally likely probability. Okay. Rolling a 1. How likely is it that I will roll a 1? Well, remember, there's 6 possible outcomes, and only one of them is a 1. And that cannot be simplified. How about not rolling a 1? 6 possible outcomes, 5 of them are not 1s. Okay, something to take into consideration here. These two pieces are called complements. It's the sum of the probabilities for any 2 complementary events is always 1. So the probability of doing something and the probability of not doing something should add up to 1. Let's do some more. We've got a bowl contains 5 red chips, 7 blue chips, 6 yellow chips, and 10 green chips. 1 chip is randomly drawn. Find each probability. Why don't you pause the video and give this a try on your own. Alright, so we need to first add up all of that information to find out how many total possible outcomes I have, and that gives me 16, 21, 28 is my total possible. So I've got 7 blue chips out of 28. That simplifies to 1/4. A red or a yellow chip. Remember, still out of 28 here, but I've got red or yellow. So that's going to be 11 out of 28. That can't simplify. Not green, so that means red, blue, or yellow. That gives me 18 out of 28, which will simplify to 9 out of 14. Okay. Hope you got those right. Using a tree diagram to count outcomes. Sometimes finding all the outcomes is not as simple as just adding it all up. So in this case here, we're talking about school baseball caps that come in blue, yellow, or white. And the caps have either the school mascot or the school's initials. So your cap could be either blue, yellow, or white. And each of those caps could either have the school mascot or the school's initials. So I could have a blue cap with a mascot, a blue cap with the initials, a yellow cap with the mascot, a yellow cap with the initials, a white cap with the mascot, or a white cap with the initials. And that means that there are 6 possible hats. Now, this helps us to think about what we call the fundamental counting principle. So if I go back, I have 3 possibilities here and 2 possibilities here. 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2. So the fundamental counting principle says if I take the number of ways M can occur, so the colors, there's 3 ways with the colors, followed by the number of ways N can occur, so the mascot or the initials, 2 ways, and if I multiply them together, I get the total number of possible ways. Let's look at another example. So there's 4 possible sizes for fish tanks. So we could call it small, medium, large, and extra large. And 3 possible shapes. Round, square, and weird. So that means 4 times 3 would give us 12 possible fish tanks. Now this will come in handy when you get bigger numbers with more events happening. For example, an ice cream shop offers 1, 2, or 3 scoops of ice cream. So 3 options of ice cream from among 12 different flavors. The ice cream can be served in a wafer cone, a sugar cone, or in a cup. So those are 3 options. So the fundamental counting principle says I take each one of those possibilities and I multiply them together. So I'm doing 6 times 12. That gives me 72 possible choices. That's a lot for just 12 different flavors of ice cream. Alright, let's try this one. Jimmy needs to make a 3-digit password for his login name on a website. 3 digits. The password can include any digit from 0 to 9. Those are 10 different digits. But the digits may not repeat. So the first digit could be anything 0 through 9. But the second digit is going to have 1 less possibility. And the third digit, again, 1 less possibility because 2 have already been used. So we're going to multiply 10 times 9 times 8. And that gives us 720 different possible passwords. So you can understand then how guessing someone's password is not an easy thing to do. Alright, odds. Odds is another vocabulary word we need to keep in mind. The odds of an event occurring is a ratio as well, but it compares the number of ways that an event can occur to the ways it cannot occur. That's different from probability. Probability is the number of ways it can occur to the total possible number of ways. Okay, so find the odds of rolling a number less than 3. So remember, on a die, we have 6 sides. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So the number of ways an event can occur, we've got 1, 2 numbers that are less than 3, and then odds is usually written with a semicolon, not as a fraction, so we can tell the difference between probability and odds. So 2 ways that it could happen, and 4 ways that it cannot happen. So that's a 2 to 4 odds. And we want to simplify that just like we would simplify a fraction. We've got 1 to 2 odds. Okay, so homework should be super simple. 1 through 20 all. There are 2 different slides here. Make sure you do all problems. Good luck.